Hey, we're back at you again. Wearing my Eagles green today. The reason being, I'm getting into football season. They've got one preseason game under their belts, and went pretty well. Steelers beat them, but it really doesn't matter about the scores. I don't think the Eagles are trying to show much out there as well. Oh, by the way, this is the Low Post. I'm Eric Stark, joined as always by Assistant Sports Editor. Nice new title here, Mike Gross for the Sunday News. And our producer, of course, is Paul Franz, our live studio audience as well. He serves us both.
We're going nuts.
And we're going to talk about the Eagles. And, Donovan Adams healthy. Running back is signed in Happy Westbrook. But what's not... I'm a little uncomfortable with the offensive line right now. Shawn Andrews has been out. He's sort of joined the team again, Mike, but he's suffering, he announced 2 weeks ago, from depression. And he came back to the team, and I'm thinking, well, that's great. You just plug him back in there. But I just read an article by John Smallwood of the Philadelphia Daily News, and I thought he made a great point. You don't just stick a guy back in there that's suffering from depression. That's just take a pill and you're fine again. There's some other issues involved with that, Mike. What are your thoughts with what's going on with Shawn Andrews?
Well, it's in the hyper competitive atmosphere of the NFL. It's almost certain that a situation like this is going to be handled too quickly. Slap a Band-Aid on it and get him back in there. That's just the nature of this beast, kind of. And it reminds me a lot of the baseball players over the years who had trouble again and again with substance abuse. Steve Howe, Darryl Strawberry, where Darryl Strawberry would say, "Okay, I'm having a problem." The Yankees or the Mets or whoever would send him to rehab, and 2 weeks later they're throwing him back into this environment, which is maybe the worst possible environment for a substance abuser to be going into. This major league situation where you're traveling around the country with tons of money and tons of people around you. And
you get done working at about 11:30 at night, and you're still in the adrenaline rush. And what are you going to do? You go out and drink, or how?
There's almost no worse
Dwight Gooden
lifestyle imaginable. Maybe rock star for somebody who's a substance abuser. And I think this is a very similar situation because we're talking about depression here, and there's a lot of ways to treat depression. One of them is medication. What if Andrew's psychiatrist says the best thing for him as a human being is to take this drug, which maybe takes a little bit of the aggressive edge off a little bit as a football player. Now the Eagles are saying, hey, you're making this guy happy, but you're making him soft, and that doesn't work for us, his employer. So then how much of the Eagles as his employer going to have a role in his treatment? There's a lot of complicated stuff going on here, and I agree with you, Starkey, that just slapping a Band-Aid on him and throwing him back in there may or may not be the best thing for him as a human being, but that's probably not the primary consideration right now.
It probably isn't. I think you also need to have teammates in place that are going to be able to help him and look out for him, look for certain signs. When does he look like he needs somebody? And that's not medication all the time. That's just people that are there for him.
Sure.
I think there needs to be those kind of safeguards.
Andy Reid is at least saying the right things about that.
It seems so.
I want to talk to Shawn, and I want to make sure that we create an environment where he can succeed. Yeah. I mean, I think Andy Reid is conscientiously the kind of person who would try to do that. But still, I think this is there's a lot of potential for danger here.
Yeah, and of course, you want the team to do well, but this is a 25-year-old who's got a bright future after football as well, and you want to make sure he's set up in the right situation.
Agreed. Yeah.
Speaking of a guy who's 27 and probably needs to be medicated, I'm talking about one Bret Myers, or as Bill Conlon wrote in a story yesterday in the Daily News, Brat Myers. He's at it again, Mike.
He's at it again.
And good or bad, he was getting pulled from a game Saturday by Charlie Manuel, and he pitched very well again, and he slammed the ball in Charlie's hand, and you know what? It was very much of a NC-17 walk off the field. You didn't want to have your children reading his lips. The TV camera maybe should have pulled away. Even in the dugout, Charlie's back was to the camera, but Bret was right there, and you could read what he was saying, and it, wasn't for the faint of heart.
And another thing about it was Myers is walking off the mound, and he does this sort of elaborate doffing of the cap thing to the hand. That was almost a sarcastic sort of stick it in Charlie's face a little bit. I think that a little too much has been made of this. Whatever you say about Bret Myers, and you can say a lot of bad things about him, I think he is a competitor who really wants to win, really wants the ball, really wants to be out there, likes the stage of big games and things. But it's absolutely ridiculous for him to think that he should not have been pulled. It was a no-brainer to pull him out of the game at that point. The previous two hitters were a double, and then a line drive out. 4 left-handers in a row are coming up to hit for the Pirates. It's the 8th inning. He's pitched brilliantly to this point. Of course, you're going to take him out.
And the guys coming at that point have pitched well. If you're talking Ramiro, Chad Durbin,
their bullpen has been tremendous.
Those guys have been strong. It wasn't like it was struggling behind him. He's the one that in the past has been struggling so much. These guys were doing great.
It's good that Brett Myers was angry about being taken out of the game.
Yeah.
It's bad that he handled the anger the way he did and expressed it the way he did, especially since it wasn't even debatable that it was time for Charlie to come get him.
Especially, I don't think he's built up a credit. This guy, like Schilling used to talk himself to stay into games. Francona used to leave him in them too long at times. After the year that Myers has had, I don't think he's built up any credibility that you give him the benefit of the doubt. You're out.
I'm not sure it's a good idea for pitchers to be talking managers into leaving them. This idea that pitchers are supposed to want the ball and not want to give it up no matter what, that's not in the best interest of the team always. And I think that's a little overblown. I think this whole thing has been a little overblown. But sort of childish behavior on Brett Myers' part.
But it raised one question for me, though, because Brett Myers is supposed to be a Charlie Manuel guy. They're buddies, okay? He's supposed to be this player's coach. Jimmy Rollins and Manuel supposed to get it wrong, and you see him yucking up and jabbing at each other when they're, these old footage they show. And yet, here's 2 of the team leaders on the team, and yet I've seen confrontations. Twice now, Jimmy Rollins has had to be removed from games for being late, didn't start a game, or didn't. Yeah, I guess he did get a pinch hit, so didn't start the game in New York, and then didn't run out of ball and got taken out of a game early. Here's twice with Charlie Manuel, this player's coach, where these players haven't been listening, and here I'm seeing a pattern here that looks like the patients are running the asylum.
Well, I'm not. I understand what you're saying. I'm not going to go that far. I think Charlie still has the team. I think they're still playing hard. I think they're going about their business in a professional way. I'm not concerned about that. But it is unfortunate that these guys, who, like you said, are kind of Charlie's guys, are kind of making Charlie's life more difficult than it needs to be.
It's worth watching because they are in first now to see if this continues or not. One more little side note, and you said you didn't know this before, so we're breaking the news here for you on the Low Post.
Wow.
The Phillies signed a high school pitcher today. Not to make the bullpen. No. Jonathan Pettibone is his name. He's a 6'5" right-hand pitcher from California. He had a scholarship to go to USC. And what is significant about this is this was a third-round pick, 110th overall, Mike. But they gave him a $500,000 signing bonus so that he didn't go to college. And in the past, the Phillies have lost out on these players where they weren't really willing to ante up the big bucks. And guys like Joe Saunders, who's pitching great for the Angels, was a former Phillies 5th-round pick back in '99, and he's pitching great for the Angels now because he wouldn't sign with the Phillies and went to college.
Oh, I would say 2 things. This is a high school pitcher, and it's a third-round draft pick. $500,000, they better be right. If you're right, spending $500,000 in this spot can save you money down the road. This is a really good way to build a ball club if you're right. I don't see how you can be this sure you're right about a high school pitcher.
Enough said on that one. Switching topics, we got to talk about the Olympics. A couple thoughts. It's on all the time. I remember back in '88 when NBC first was getting coverage of the Olympics. It had come over from ABC, Mike, and they tried to do pay-per-view.
Right.
And it just didn't fly. And it was frustrating me because I didn't get to see a lot of sports. Now it's on like every channel. It's on almost 24 hours a day. If you want to watch it, you'll find it. It's on Oxygen. It's on the Hispanic channel.
I think it's funny that it's on Oxygen.
Yeah, I do too.
That amuses me. Let's go Lifetime next now.
It's all over.
The Hallmark Network.
We should think of what the most unique channels would be. We'll come up with a list for it for next week, maybe.
Spice?
Yes, that would be.
Thank you.
Good. That would be. Okay, we can't go there.
Okay, all right.
Talking about NC-17 now.
There you go.
Beach
volleyball on Spice, I'm going to say.
That would, yeah. All right. Okay. Moving along, one of the things I think is interesting is it's on all the time, and yet I'm still having trouble tuning in at the right times. I'm missing it all.
You of all people,
I know. I don't sleep.
You are the most masterful person I've ever known at sort of gaming the whole cable TV thing to get the most entertainment value, and you're saying you can't find the Olympics.
I can't find it when I need to be there. Michael Phelps won a gold medal today, and I kept waiting to see it, and they played 11:30 at nights when he finally competed in the relay, right?
Well, the relay, and it was an amazing thing because I was just I sort of almost forgot that the Olympics were on, and I'm sitting there watching TV. Let's see what's going on with the Olympics. And I clicked over, and just as I went to NBC, they started setting up this relay race situation where the French and the Australian teams were apparently like talking all kind of trash with the Americans, and the French guys were saying we're going to destroy them, and then they had this phenomenal race where the Americans had this improbable comeback in the last 20 meters or so, which had nothing to do really with Michael Phelps, although he was on the team. He swam the first leg of the relay. It was great stuff, and it got me back into, I mean, I'm like the least jingoistic person in the world, but this got me, USA.
Makes you proud to be an American.
Sure. And especially because it was against the French.
When was the last time the French squashed anything?
Geez.
Seriously.
Who are they squashing?
I know.
Give me a break.
Give me a break.
So anyway,
Crush them.
It was one of those things that got that patriotic instinct out of you, which is what the Olympics is trying to do, it was pretty cool, actually.
Michael Phelps I've been trying to watch this guy because he's going for history, and you know what? I'm going to ask you in a second what your thoughts are of that, because I think it's pretty cool we could see this. He's trying to beat Mark Spitz's record of 7 medals, 7 golds back in 72. And I'd love to see the history happen. Sometimes I like to keep history where it's at. It's history for a reason. But to be part of this, it's amazing because this guy is like every day has to swim. He's going for another medal. He doesn't get any chance to rest up. He needs to get 8, and so far he's on pace.
Well, he's going to have to swim 17 or 18 times competitively in a period of 3 or 4 days. 4 or 5 days.
He's going to get doing that. Very wrinkly.
Yeah, that's right. He's got a wrinkle and everything else, but he's not real concerned about. My sense is he's not real concerned about skincare at this point.
Okay.
But this is the greatest swimmer who ever lived. I mean, clearly already that's for sure. He's going to have more Olympic gold medals than anybody's ever had, regardless, because unless there's something tragic happens, he's going to be in the 2012 Olympics also in London.
Yeah, he's still young.
Whether or not he can do this 8 golds in one Olympics is just sort of off the charts amazing. But supposedly this relay race was the biggest challenge for that. The French were actually favored in this relay, and this was supposed to be the biggest hurdle to him actually pulling it off, other than, is he capable of doing the superhuman just physical effort that it's going to take. So it's something that really is worth watching, and it's pretty cool, and this guy is just... it's almost like, I remember years ago I read a quote from a football coach where he said about Walter Payton, he said, what God had in mind here was a football player. Well, clearly what God had in mind with Michael Phelps was a swimmer.
It was a fish, and somehow we got...
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
The other thing, and I've been trying to find times when it's on because of the local connection, and I actually covered Kim Glass, the Conestoga Valley volleyball player, former, great standout in volleyball. I covered her back then. Somebody reminded me of a story I wrote about her where I said she has a chance to be the best player ever in this county. I think she's exceeded that, folks.
Yeah, she's there.
It's neat to see her, and she was such a talent back then, Mike. Conestoga Valley has always had a great volleyball program, especially on the girls' side. Al Cothroff, who's no longer coaching there, it's a shame, has done a great job. But
that's a little subject, yeah.
Got a little. Yeah, I'm trying to get his next job for him. I want to cut Al. Got a little tidbit on Kim. I don't know if she has asthma, but a man here that works for us named Bill is friends with the family and told me that Kim called back to her mom and just went over Saturday, Mike. And her mom has asthma bad, and Kim and another teammate have had trouble breathing over there because the air quality is not so great in China.
Quality's awful in China.
She went to, you want to call it the hospital, but the medic area they have at the Olympic Village, and asked for one of those, what do they call it? Inhaler. Something for help with her breathing. And they wouldn't give it to her because of the steroids in those things, and you don't want to get the team disqualified. Very interesting. So she called back to mom and says, "Hey, we're gonna tough it out. We'll be all right. We'll make it. Make sure you pack yourself extra." So a little tidbit for you, stuff you don't get in the articles, but the breathing must not be too good.
That's an interesting thing, because how much of that is China not wanting the bad PR of having seen Olympic athletes sucking on an inhaler, and that's part of it. But maybe it is a legitimate thing, because there is a steroid involved in some of these breathing medications
you wouldn't think of
take,
it. And just think how innocent that would have been if they wouldn't have stepped in and said,
yeah.
"Hey, whoa!"
It could have been it could have been a disastrous thing. But yeah, Kim Glass is somebody that you really want to watch. Not somebody who's just good enough to be on the Olympic team, but really one of their better players, outside hitter.
Yeah.
a 6'3" kid and a beautiful girl, a model, a person who's done some modeling. I mean, she's really kind of special and
great personality.
Yeah,
Just
charismatic
really,
kid and really somebody who
you want to
might
pull for her.
emerge.
You want to pull for her.
No question.
And like I said, it really speaks a lot because volleyball in this area on the girls' side and the boys has been outstanding for years. It's neat to see somebody break through, and I think Kim Glass will be a good role model for a lot of the girls around here to keep pushing, and we might see more, Mike. Set me up for the stat of the week here, Mike.
It's time once again. I'm not going to even very spare and simple here. Here's Starkey with a stat of the week.
The stat of the week this week is 1. That is the amount of medals that the country of Georgia, I was going to say state, the country of Georgia has won, and that's the good news, folks. When these athletes return home, they may not have a country to go back to. At least not one named Georgia. So it's nice to see them at least have a medal to bring home.
Really scary. Talk about something hanging over your head.
Wow. As they were marching in for the Olympic ceremony, their country was at war. What a crazy thing going on. So until next week, we've enjoyed talking to you about many topics, breathing in, steroids, depression, and Brett Myers.
That's what we're about.
Yeah, we're about, yeah. So until next week, we want to thank our producer, Brett Myers. Brett Myers.
I think he should be Brett Favre.
Yeah, we had to get his name in somewhere. For Paul Franz, what is your name? For Paul Franz, for Mike Gross, I'm Eric Stark. We'll see you again, hopefully, from the low post.